Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF-accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hello, everybody.
What up?
To CLCI Live.
Wonderful to see everybody. Hello. How's everybody doing today?
They're good.
Good. We are going to talk about some things in a moment, but before we do, let's quickly mention to everybody to make sure to join in the conversation. Share, like, subscribe, hit that button. If you think this would be beneficial to anybody else, share it with them. And also be sure to comment. I have to give Jen permission to comment on our YouTube channel. I keep forgetting. I don't know if that's happened yet.
Yes, you do.
We have some fantastic interaction on our YouTube channel, and these poor people need some love. So we got to give them some love.
Jen was blocked for some inflammatory comments.
Yeah, Jen's she could get a little crazy now and again.
Speaking of inflammatory, though, what's our topic of the month? Let's start with the general overview. We talked about marketing last month.
So this is the second week of Controversial Coaching 101. And these are topics that can be controversial or viewed as controversial, and it'll take different shapes. What was our last week? What did we talk about last week? You like how my brain is not functioning? Does anybody remember? What?
Your client might be delusional, self-awareness.
Is your client delusional?
Yeah. So I guess we have done controversial cook. This is the second one.
We talked about self-awareness last week.
We gave that one a really positive spin, though. So
I think we're inclined to land on the positive side of things.
Yeah. Let's give this one a negative spin, then.
Switch it up again. So today, what are we talking about?
Politics, religion, and sex.
Favorite subjects.
as directly as spoken, Anthony?
That's what we have in our Slack channel. But those are, those topics and others that usually people, when you first meet with someone you don't know, you don't really talk about those things. You try to avoid those weird, awkward conversations where people have a lot of different views on the spectrum and have strong feelings about. But these topics can come up in a coaching session too. You might be confronted by people who have different opinions than you. When I encounter people with different opinions than me, I shame them. I call them names. And I do my utmost to yell and scream and assert my own opinions. What about you guys?
Well, this is definitely that negative spin you were talking about, Anthony. You just knocked it out the park.
He's right at
now,
that.
when you say, what else do we do? Are you speaking more in reference of coaching or just in regular conversation?
That's a regular conversation, because as coaches, we're held to higher standards than our normal selves offline and in a non-professional setting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's be serious though. When you guys are confronted with maybe those weird, difficult conversations with people that you don't agree with on a moral or fundamental level, how do you guys react?
Well, I think I need more of a definition to that, because there is belief systems, and I don't have to believe in their belief system, but if it's a morally and ethically go against who I am, somebody is committing a crime, and it's a crime that, is not questionable. I mean, I think that's a different conversation. But as far as somebody thinking differently than I had, and towards the beginning of a coaching session, I definitely had that experience where I started to, what I call, infiltrate the coaching session. I recognized, and I hadn't done anything overtly, it was just how I was thinking, but my thinking thoughts can interfere with a coaching session. So I had to recalibrate, if you will, realign myself that this is not about me. This is about what they're going towards, where they're going. And usually I do writing, a little writing that I did. And called it a day. I was done with it. I know Brooke had her hand up and I kept talking. Go ahead.
Well, I know. So for me, I often feel like a fish out of water because I was raised without any religion, like none whatsoever, zero. Like at times in direct opposition, like why would you ever do that kind of attitude? And that is something I brought with me as an adult, but I feel like I don't view the world always in the same way that other people do who were brought up in that environment. And I even have a good friend she's Christian. It's a big part of who she is. And I remember being nervous to initially tell her that I was not, that I didn't have, I was not somebody who went to church, and I didn't have a Christian or even really a religious background. It just wasn't who, and I wondered how she was going to respond to that and if it was going to be in a positive way, because I myself have had negative experiences where I've had the negative reaction to that, right? And I've been judged, and so I get sometimes nervous to share that, because where I am in a lot of the things I do in the circles I run, it's a largely Christian, they're large groups of Christian folks. And so I feel sometimes like a fish out of water. And I also understand I don't view the world in the same way they view the world, just because it wasn't part of how I was raised. And so it's not an innate thing, an innate understanding in me. So it's a different, weird space for me to be in sometimes, for sure.
And if I may add to that, thank you for sharing that, Brooke. Like, as me, like, I grew up in the Christian faith. That is still very much a part of who I am. And when I speak with people, regardless of where they came from, I recognize that no matter what makes us different from the polarizing topics such as politics, religion, sex, at our core, there's a desire to be loved and valued and cared for. So beyond the things that make us different, I always look and say, okay, regardless of whether or not I agree with your worldview, how can I show you love in this space? How can I show you respect? How can I make you feel seen, heard, and valued? And it's not to say that I'm perfect in every space, because when it comes to things such as racism, xenophobia, the like, it is very hard for me to look past that. So there's a lot of inner work that's done to see the more extreme sides, of course, in the world, according to me. But just coming back to that place where it's like, how do you love and honor someone even if they're different than you? That's just my thing.
And I think even one step, I mean, yes, in day-to-day life, I love differences in people. Like, I think that that's what makes it interesting. And I feel like if I surround myself by people that don't challenge my viewpoint or don't show me another perspective, I'm not going to be a well-rounded human being. So I like knowing different kinds of people. And so to me, that's very important. And I think I have a bias, a personal bias, but it's a bias against me. And it's sort of an assumption that I assume that maybe because I am not something somebody else is, they won't want to be around me, right? That's not fair to them, right? That's not fair to that other party for me to assume that because maybe I am not like them, they will not want to have me around. That is like me, a bias against, it's not me giving them a chance to show that that's not the case. And it's kind of unfair to everybody involved, right? But that is something an insecurity, I guess you could say, that I carry with me. That's that fear that I'm not going to be accepted because I am different. But I do love to be around all different kinds of people. And so when you go into those circles, you wonder, okay, am I going to be accepted? Am I going to find my way through here? And there's always that fear and that trepidation, right?
Jerome, Jen, how do you guys sort of deal with, or I guess interact with people of differing opinions than you on, I guess, maybe political, religious, or other, other topics.
Go ahead, Jerome.
Well, I'm not much of a guy who likes to believe in a whole lot of conflict. So typically, which I think is to my benefit, I'm of the same school of thought as Brooke. I love being around people who are different than me. I can remember just thinking back to, growing up, going to school. Those were super interesting times for me because I got to meet people from many different walks of life and got to kind of figure out why they worked the way that they did. If I hung out with them long enough, figure out, some of their backgrounds and how that plays into who they are as a person, things like that. I think really a lot of the people that I hang out with on a regular basis outside of my family are very different than I am. And I invite that because it does, just kind of like what Brooke was saying, I think it makes interaction with them a lot more exciting. I kind of, I don't want to hang out. I already have my family who are very similar in thought when it comes to certain things that come up, especially when we're talking about controversial topics. They're going to speak very similarly to me because that's just the foundation we're all built on. So when I'm spending time with people outside of my family, I like to invoke some controversy. I'm not going to have, I'm not going to invoke any conflict or anything like that. Usually I kind of take a mental note. Sometimes, even if they say something that I think is controversial, if I spend some time on it, it may not be as controversial as I initially thought after getting to the bottom of why they said what they said. So usually when it comes to controversy, I take a step back. I do not invoke conflict. I'm not going to push back. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of dig deeper and understand exactly where they're coming from. Now, there have been people that I'm just like, what you just said, even after getting to know why you said it, we're not going to ever probably see eye to eye, but that's okay. That's life and we'll move on. We don't have to be, acquaintances or anything like that. So I typically move with it.
I know that, I think of myself when I was younger, and I was when I was younger, I was definitely on much more of a mission, to make people realize things. Right, whatever those things might be, just insert. Okay, and I have totally changed my attitude there. I call it one of the things I'll say is which this might sound, this could sound rude, but I don't care what anybody believes in, and this is not. I'm talking politics. I'm talking about somebody wakes up and they think the sun is purple and it rotates around the world. For the most part, I'm not going to get into an argument with you, right? If that's something that you hold, that is your perspective, I'm going to ask more about it. Okay, well, sure. Tell me more about that. But the old me would have been, want to change them. You know what I mean? No, you're wrong. And I've become such a different human being in that perspective. Because I don't want to be the one to, I guess, I'm just not on a mission to break anybody's beliefs about the world, especially if they're not hurting anyone else. Let's say that if they're not harming, if they're ultimately there and what they're doing is good, I'm not going to be a one-woman mission to change you because I feel like it. I guess there are moments, though, as you're sharing, though, that there are definitely things in me that I could be triggered by, though, that would want me to get back to that person. And I know it because I'm surrounded in my family by people who we don't always have the same values. There are things that very different opinions that I will hold my tongue because I know I'm not changing that opinion. I know I'm not. I just know I'm not. And I know that it's so ingrained in them that the moment I go, you're wrong or something like that, they're going to shut off. And it's not
just to be a little more specific, Brooke, these are political opinions, correct?
These are political opinions. They're very political opinions that are laced and interlaced in other bits too, that cross the lines, into other spaces. That it just becomes difficult sometimes for me because it's my head wants to explode, but then I realize that I'm not going to change that. perspective right now in this moment. I can't. It's not going to happen. And so I've just learned to be quiet more than I used to, because I value the love of my family members more than that argument, I guess you could say. And I just have to, you pick your battles. I've learned to pick the battles. And what they believe or are saying, like while we're driving in a car or something, I can sit with that without getting into an all-out brawl, fight with them about something. I'll sometimes ask little questions to hopefully open up maybe some doors, and then just leave it at that. But I'm a different person. But already, like in sharing this, I think about it. If you were in a coaching session with somebody, is there anything that they could say that might make one of you guys want to change their perspective?
Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, not about them. I would like about an outside issue, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, we want to change perspective as coaches, but what I mean if they have
to fit your perspective.
Like, could you view that happening? Maybe even not even realize it's happening, and where it infiltrates or sneaks in.
And it could come in as sort of a leading question where you're like, I'm the objective coach just presenting, gray thinking, an alternative to your. That's like, even wording it like that, like you're implicating that this person is using black and white thinking and they're stuck in their ways, and I have the moral high ground as a coach by offering alternative points of views, and then maybe subtly baking in questions to maybe lead to your own way of thinking. It seems like it could be very easy for a coach to even deceive themselves in that way, by being objective and offering alternative points of view.
It's that offering alternative points of view, right? Like feeling the need, having an ego sort of attached need to open up in a perspective that may not be relevant to the overall goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think we have to be cautious, right? Is when we're starting to get off topic of what the goal of the session and the work together is, because we're trying to change someone's perspective about their belief in the world, the way they see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, I see you nodding.
Well, to be honest, that is one of the reasons why when a topic in a coaching session came up, well, not going to really share what that subject is. Yes, I wanted to change their worldview, but because I wanted to change their worldview, I actually had to let them go. Because number one, I didn't agree with what they were doing. Number two, I was no longer the present force that that client needed me to be. And number three, I didn't want that to fester and turn into a negative outlook on this person. I still don't think they're a bad person. It's just I don't agree with that worldview, and it triggered something in me that I was healing from. So the best thing to do was to respectfully let that client go. And if I wanted to think about, man, I wish I could have changed them, at least they're not paying me money anymore. So referring out is my go-to there.
Jen, we haven't heard much from you over there.
She's been trying.
Well, let's see how it goes. I've not had an experience like that yet. I mean, I've had clients where very visibly we have different worldviews, but it's never been a problem yet. It's never bothered me. I'm able to respect their worldview.
Just at the perfect moment, the critical moment.
She's gone.
And she'll be back.
There we go.
Hey, stop talking. Better talk. Hurry up.
Oh,
Man.
I think she's good.
Come on.
I think we
Come
got her.
on, bro.
You're back. You're back.
It's not going to last.
Go.
you have an
Oh, yeah,
experience
you.
in that world for you. You've been able to know where you end and begin. They are.
Yeah, it's never been a problem. It's never been a problem. I'm seamlessly able to respect their worldview so far. Now, if it comes to a point like what Sam just described, I'm really happy I heard what you just described, because now I feel, empowered to be able to make that choice and not wonder, should I have done something different? Like, that really resonated. So until it becomes an issue, which it has never been so far, it's not a problem if they have a different worldview. That's not why I'm coaching them. I'm not coaching them on their worldview.
What about differences in what is maybe morally acceptable, where it's not against the law? I'll say that. Like, legally, we're all in the clear, but maybe as a personal moral point, you're not okay with this. And let me give you an example that Brooke shared an article from ICF by Jim Smith, Ethical Matters, Complexity in the Coaching Space. Here's the situation, and we can just look at the situation, not the rest of the article. A coaching conversation with an executive client. The client is married, male, and holds a C-suite role. After working with his coach for 9 months, he declares that he wants to take the conversation in a different direction today. He's incredibly stressed about a situation that he characterizes as a time management issue. He reveals that he's been having an affair with a male colleague and wants to work on this during the coaching session. That's pretty much it for the hypothetical situation.
This is a real. This is a
real
scenario that actually
happened. This is a real. There's not much other detail, but I'm going to add my little Anthony twist to it. The client doesn't see the affair as an issue. It's more of the time management. I got to balance my wife versus my lover,
my affair, and my job.
My job. How do I make this work as one of your clients? And there's no moral compunction on the side of the client. It's not an issue.
Well, you just revealed the trigger right there for me.
Yeah, right. There's lots of things inside going on as a coach, right? Like, we have.
Yeah. It's like, I can't be present for you at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, in order to stop me from judging you, I have to distance. Now, granted, had I not had to walk through the road to recovery and betrayal trauma, then maybe this wouldn't be such a visceral reaction for me. But I think it all just comes back to what I just shared in the Coaching 101 class. To show up for coaching, you have to do work outside of that. Mm-hmm. So deciding immediately, what are your triggers? What are your big red buttons? Affairs, like infidelity in any case, married or not. It's like, okay, that is going to be something that I don't see eye to eye with you on. So now I have to make a choice. Do I keep working with you, and can I be present for you? Or do I need to potentially speak to another coach about taking you on? That way you get the services you deserve as well. Because I believe everybody deserves to have a safe space. I don't believe that I can be a safe space for everyone.
This is also kind of a weird situation. I just realized with the affair in the C-suite. The coaching relationship could have potential legal ramifications if a divorce were to happen, and it was found out that the client was coaching with you about that topic.
Well,
I don't exactly know the full scope of the legal ramifications. If that,
you might be able to get subpoenaed into a court, but I don't think it would have a legal. But now let's say, what if that male affair is somebody who is working in the business with him? Is somebody? Doesn't it say he's a male coworker? And
I think it was a male colleague.
What happens if something happens within that business? That male coworker knows something he shouldn't. Let's say it's a publicly traded business. Let's say there's a lot of things that can happen that can result in some bad. Like, that's when it starts to get really sticky. Like, if we're not even talking about that, the affair part, but the male coworker part is a whole other thing that if he's C-suite, that he's above him. So now there's a power dynamic that's going on that makes it sexual, makes it, what is it? What's the word? What is sexual harassment? Ultimately, to some degree, right? Like if the boss C-suite is above him and he reports to him, by law, that could be breaking the law.
Well, let's stay in moral land, not legal. We're crossing the line of legal land, which like things are a bit more easier for us as a coach because we could say this isn't in my coaching contract, or the coaching if you're coaching with sponsors, and that's like another thing. But let's stay in legal land. This is a infidelity.
Okay.
Someone he knows that's not in the company, and you just disagree with it on a moral level. I saw Brooke, Jen, and Sam have some reactions to that. Lisa and Jerome, you guys sort of kept it, under the hood. What are your guys' thoughts?
Dang, call us out.
So if I'm being hired by the stakeholder or the business to conduct coaching in a business manner, then I am going to refer out.
Well, from the client's perspective, this is a time management issue that relates to, his business time as well.
And it just like he's an executive client, so it looks like he is the client, so we're not hired by the business.
So
yeah.
Oh gosh, that is really murky water.
Really murky water.
It's really murky water.
So if I just check my moral compunctions, all of my inner stuff aside, and I go, okay, time management issue, let's do this. We're not digging deep here. I want to get through this session as quick as humanly possible.
But I would probably add, staying on that neutral ground. If, like you're saying, we're sticking with time management, great. But I'm also going to say here's here's a referral if you want to discuss these other things.
Yeah, would it be okay to say, okay, this is not in the scope of what we're supposed to be working on?
Yeah.
Would it be okay to say that this is within the scope that we're working on and you're doing your job still at that point?
See, this is where I'm kind of like, if you are a coach, you can probably manage that situation as a product of time.
We're not coaching the person. Yeah. We're just coaching the problem in this situation, right?
Well, I don't know how this coaching conversation actually went, but I could imagine where it's like, okay, describe the situation to me as it resolves around your time versus your business, your family and or spouse, and this other person you're having an affair with. What outcome would you like to see? And then the conversation goes from there where it's like, okay, I want to be able to have all three of my obligations met and feel not stressed out. Or
this is stressing me out.
This guy is
controversy.
I'm sorry. This client is he's a sociopath.
Okay, but that's a label though, Brooke, that you're giving to this person. You do not know this person's situation.
It's a problem.
I'm not saying this is the case, but
I'm lying. I hate lying. I really do.
Okay. That's another moral.
I know.
Sort of,
I'm trying really hard.
And it crosses a lot of boundaries with like what it is you're comfortable with coaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which our students are going to eventually probably run into. Where
I coach.
You get situations where it's lying or
I coach men who are having affairs with their wives, with other men, to make sure that they can get out of the situation, manage their time correctly.
Oh my Lanta.
And learning how to live a life that is not.
Lisa,
life.
could you bring what you just wrote in the chat? Could you talk about that?
So there was a couple that came in, and I didn't know this before. But as we're talking, and I use this example for something else as well, but in this particular case, I found out that she's the girlfriend and he's married to somebody else.
And they're in couples counseling. You're coaching the girlfriend and the husband?
And I totally, like I said, did not know, was not aware.
That's funny though. That's weird. Like he's going to couples counseling with his girlfriend.
Hold on. Can I ask a further question, Lisa?
No.
Was this an affair, or did you know that it was an affair and not
So
like maybe an open relationship?
As our coaching sessions went on, I became understanding of what this actually was, and I don't want to disclose information. And it was culturally accepted.
Okay, that's true. There are cultures where it is acceptable. There absolutely are.
There you go. That's kind of what I was getting at. Like there might be situations
where even the wife knows it's, and it's the thing. It's the thing.
It's a sanctioned, hey, like he's got a girlfriend. I'm the wife at home. We're all okay with this. We all know what's up. You as the coach, though,
it's still it's never as clear cut as all that.
All I'm getting is that you might not be aware of all the information as a coach in these weird situations that you might come across. And I say weird. I don't. No offense to the people who are engaged in those.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And so the agenda,
out of the American cultural norm.
the agenda, it was her agenda to have his relationship end without going any further, because that will give out too much.
Well, that's the thing too, then, right? That's wow.
Yeah, so that was reminding me of what we were talking about here. And that's not something, and it wasn't clear. A lot of the grayness on our first session, it became a whole lot clearer.
You asked if the wife could come in and join.
Oh, she wasn't in this country.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. She wasn't in this country. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it okay then,
Yeah. So consequently, we couldn't.
So the coaching relationship dissolved after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was not. They had two different agendas. They had two different. There was just very divergent conversations that bringing it together. I'm being definite as I say this because it could possibly, with coaching change things, but it wasn't happening on my watch. I wasn't going to participate. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it.
In a situation. So can we? I have a question here. It's an interesting one. So, you're in a situation with a client. That client is in an unhappy marriage, let's say, right? And you're just coaching, let's say, a woman. She's in an unhappy in her marriage, and she is doing and acting out in ways that are, not healthy or helpful into that. And she comes to you and she says, okay, my goal here is to, keep my marriage going, but I want to live a double life, right? Like similar to that, right? Like she can have her goal is I want to, for what X, Y, and Z reasons, do we consider the outside parties, like the damage that our clients might be causing to other human beings outside of themselves? Is that something that we should be considerate of as a coach in a situation like this? Is that, or should we not? This isn't about those people. They're not paying us. This is about this human being in front of us. It's a weird space.
Sorry, I was going to address the core competencies about doing good as opposed to preventing harm. So that's like one important thing. That's difficult because that can cross into like other philosophical, even political boundaries. Like, let's say I'm coaching somebody who wants to open a business and like become a millionaire, but I'm also ethically opposed to the idea of millionaires and billionaires for reasons such as I'm against capitalism and wealth inequality and things of that nature. And by helping this person become a business owner, it's against I'm thinking I'm doing harm that way by doing that. Those sort of arguments, I don't know the answer to necessarily.
Well,
And I guess it's kind of comes down to what you can square with as a coach so that you can sleep well at night. So in the case of, go on, Sam.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, even as you said that, doing good versus preventing harm. I mean, obviously, I would not want to coach the next supervillain in the United States or something of that sort. But I always think about whether or not coaching someone through something is doing more gain, like, than net harm to themselves, to society. And it's very hard to be able to just think about, by coaching this one person, is it truly a net harm to society? I don't know that. Is it truly a net gain to society? I don't know that. I think it all depends. It's hard to answer.
what let's say we have a client, that client's goal is to start base jumping, which is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do on the planet, right? And it's ultimately, or let's pick something that we know is probably lethal or deadly to most people.
While still being legal.
Insert something here.
Let's just say base jumping, and the person who's base jumping has a family and children. And they're opposed to it, but they still want to base jump. While it is all possible that they will die during this experience at some point in the future and harm the family unit. Which I don't know the statistics on base jumping, and I don't even know if it's my place to ask as a coach that.
Right? But it's like, oh, man.
But I might have strong opinions about, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this dangerous activity for the sake of these other people. Is that a consideration you ask as a coach? Or sort of delve into?
I think it's overthinking in this moment. When you're first finding a topic, you're going to delve into, what do they know about it? What do they think about it? What are concerns they have about it? What's helping them move this way? You're going to get to know a whole lot more perspective of the client before anything comes out. Now, a client might say, but my significant other is really against it. That might provide a space for some of those other kinds of questions. But you don't just jump in there and ask those. And judgy, to me, those are judgy kinds of questions when we don't know where they are and what they're thinking.
It's the example. And also, Kristen, just so you know, no judgment whatsoever. And that's what this whole topic, though, is about, us as human beings talking about controversial things and managing our judgment through it. And how do we manage our judgment? And as coaches, being aware of when those judgments happen and knowing when we have to remove ourselves from situations where it's just too beyond our capability as a person to check those judgments, set those judgments aside, right?
I'd like to add as well, I like to pretend sometimes to be a judgy or difficult person. It's more so to illustrate how someone would react in a situation where they're judgy.
He's satirically judgmental. But yeah, absolutely. That's the whole basis of this topic, is that it makes, like, I think one of the ways to take, if we take it out of a controversial space, but it's sort of one of the examples I give, that I don't coach in marketing spaces because I have too many judgments in those spaces. I cannot be an effective coach in a marketing space. It's not possible. I start to cringe. I start to get all these things creep up, like the shoulds, the what are you doing, all of it. And I know for me as a human being, if I want to be a impartial coach, I cannot coach in a marketing space.
So wouldn't that bring up another controversy? Something that is a bit controversial is the fact that, coaches are supposed to present themselves as experts in their field. Wouldn't that kind of, or is that just you? Do you think that's just a Brooke thing where you personally cannot do that?
I think she can. I don't think she's coming from complete. I see your hands, Sam, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think she really does come from neutral space, and as she gathers information, then her expertise jumps out.
Yes, but it's I find that if I want to set myself up and be in a space where I can truly be very curious, and I can do that in marketing, but it's a lot harder if I want to be easy on myself, right? If I don't want it to be a lot of work for me, and maybe it's something I need to practice more of, but I prefer to be able to coach other things because it's not as much internal work for me to coach in spaces where I don't have as much expertise.
And you can see their discomfort with marketing. That's the other piece of it.
Oh, the other piece of that is, yes, I want to help. Like there's a part of me that wants to help and like really, and it's harder for me to manage that too, that piece that I want to be a fixer. I want to be a helper. I want to be, that is much harder for me to manage in marketing because I've been a marketing consultant. So that's like another muscle for me that I turn on. Mm-hmm. And so having to turn that muscle off is a lot more difficult because it's muscle memory at this point. And so I have to, and maybe it's something I should do. I should put myself in that situation to get better. And maybe this is me being too easy on myself, right? But I find that I am able to be more curious and relaxed and enjoy a coaching session more if it isn't in a marketing space.
But that's true that we should know ourselves, right? Knowing ourselves and where we find joy in the journey as much as knowing that difference is equally important for us. I want to reach out to Sam. I've seen his hand go a couple times.
Yeah. It was interesting hearing Jerome say that there is what you said, clients are expecting you to be a subject matter expert in this space. Did I hear that properly?
I was saying, so could it be controversial to present yourself as an expert when because I believe what Brooke is saying is true. In a space of expertise, you do want to give advice. It's just creeping up, like you sometimes just want to throw it up and throw it out. I'm just saying, is that, something that is controversial in this space? And
I don't know.
Brooke's answer, I think, cleared it up. Brooke and Lisa's answer cleared it up pretty well, but.
Yeah, I don't know if it is necessarily controversial. Oh man, I hear an echo going on.
Yeah, it's okay now though.
Yeah, like just using my example here, when it comes to leadership in that space, it can be such a nebulous term, but it can also be a very concrete term as well. Things that I have experienced. So with a leadership type of client, it allows me to be more of an educated echo for them. So I'm not necessarily giving them advice, but when they say certain things, I understand where they are coming from. And I could still ask because I could still be totally wrong. Like I've heard this before with many other people, but how does this manifest for another client? I feel like it's easier than for something and that's where like Brooke and I, man, you are better than me when it comes to coaching in places where you are maybe not as versed. Because for me, when I've got that information, I can sit with that. I'm more comfortable. We can have that conversation. It's very free flowing. Whereas if I've got to consult the oracle that is Google just to understand what the heck you're saying, I'm like, shoot, what the heck am I doing here?
And that's fair. And that's not to say, like, I think in a leadership space, there are spaces I think that I have expertise that I could absolutely coach in. It's something about marketing in particular that makes it really hard for me to do. And I think it's because I've been specifically a consultant in those spaces. I've been hey, let's build a website, let's create a brand, let's build a plan, and I think that I could coach in those spaces, and it might also be that I just don't want to as much these days. But I love leadership. I would love to coach in spaces like that. There are spaces that I do have expertise, and I think I would absolutely, I prefer to have some expertise in those spaces. I think part of the difference for me too is I am passionate about marketing. I enjoy marketing. I like doing marketing. But I'm also somebody who likes to maneuver into new found spaces as well. And so I find it much more, I guess, interesting and engaging for me to be able to work in a space that isn't something that I feel like I've done a lot of. And that might also be part of what is going on there too, for me, to be fair. And I would also say you should have some knowledge and expertise, because we should be trying to help our clients in our marketing with solutions to get them through the door. Like that's, so you've got to, it's a finding a balance, I think, as well. That sometimes though, that expertise can be a curse. And I think that where the coaching comes in, and I'm actively practicing coaching, is important, because we've got to check that expertise part of us, that ego, and be curious.
Curious and interested, baby. Curious and interested.
And no, we don't have the answers, right?
So we talked a little bit about, I guess, sex and relationships, religion, and maybe morals. What about politics? Let's say hypothetically.
Can we? It's a religion. It's just a religion in a different form. Like, really?
I'm sure religious people might disagree with you on that, Brooke, but.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. It's so, I mean, for the way that people viscerally react to it, like it has the same, I think, effect on human beings psychologically as a religious issue does, which it is a different thing altogether, absolutely. But I think people identify in a way that is similar to the religious identification. But yes, that was a blanket statement that I should not have made. I'm gonna run and pee though. I'll be right back.
Everybody is dropping out. Jerome's gone. Brooke's gone.
Oh wait, no, I'll stay.
Jen's gone. No, it's fine. Go.
Where did Jerome go?
No, I'm drinking coffee though.
He dropped two.
Oh no!
But on the topic of politics, there could be like specific issues that come up that people feel really strongly about. And I wanted to give a hypothetical to sort of maybe illustrate what I'm talking about. Let's say I'm a coach who is strongly, I'm for gun control. Gun control is a very controversial topic, no matter where you are. Let's say that I'm for gun control, and I encounter a client throughout the conversation. They are against gun control, and they're so against it that part of their goal is, I want to, what is it called when you're like working with like Congress and you're trying to, you lobby. That they want to lobby for this, political measure that you are against. Or the reverse situation could happen. Maybe I'm, against gun control. The person I'm coaching wants to lobby for it. And there's just, you guys are on opposite ends in such a way where there's not even maybe room for nuance, because on the ballot, you're either for something or you're against it. You don't get to write, your gray thinking
I can
on
say,
black and white issue.
To be like more concrete issue, I like I think I would have to be one of those situations where I would have to excuse myself. Like, it's like knowing what your things are. Like, if I was coaching somebody in the space of LGBTQIA or trans, and they were lobbying against things in that space, I would have to excuse myself morally. I would have to, just for my own morals, because I firmly believe that we should allow people to be who they believe they are, who they feel like they are, and it's not our place to change that. Like, it's not our place to lobby to, but others believe very firmly the other way, and I would not be able to sleep at night It just wouldn't work for me. It just would not be okay. So, and that's how I am.
Yeah.
The thing that we have to always keep in mind when we have these really diverse polar perspectives is to never make it the client at fault or bad or they're wrong. We have to just excuse ourselves that this is not a good was beyond my scope of practice. You find the right terms that will alleviate the client not feeling judged in that
We're
way.
not, and it's
Yeah.
not. And I don't want to be judgmental about that person in that moment, right? I don't want to be somebody who makes a blanket statement or judgment about that client. It's just a space that I wouldn't feel comfortable working in.
Right.
And you could totally go with it's beyond my scope of practice. This conversation is beyond my scope of practice. And I will need to, refer you out.
Yeah, there was something that was actually just put in the chat that encapsulated my thought. Kristen's comment. My website and advertising tends to repel those specific clients, though.
Yeah.
And I have to ask here, like everything we've talked about in this space, extraordinarily valid with your marketing. When you put yourself out there as a coach, they're not just learning about your service or your product, they're learning about you. So the likelihood of someone with extreme, and there's no research I have here to back this up, but the likelihood of people with those extreme polar opposites coming to you, is it really that high? Because it's like,
but it is possible because it absolutely is because I think of it in the way which is outside of coaching, but I also teach Pilates, right? And because of the nature of what I'm teaching, these subjects aren't, they don't necessarily come up, but they do come up in our course, our talk, how we do, how we interact with one another after the session. Sometimes even during the session, sometimes in the middle of this, and I know in certain moments that I am not on the same page, right? But what I'm working on with them isn't specifically about those things, right? It's not specifically about those topics, so I'm fine. Like it's no big deal. That's not. I'm helping them become healthier, happier human beings in that space, or with flexibility and all of that. I guess so I think I could have somebody walk through the door that maybe we didn't see eye to eye on things, but we're not working on that. And I think that's where the marketing piece comes in, because not all of us are putting in our thing. I am a Republican, Christian. I believe in X, Y, and Z, and I would like my clients to do the same. No, we're talking about the needs that we're helping them solve. And I would think that even though we target our audience, we still get a great deal of versatility that comes through.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I asked that question because when people do come through the door and sure they do, I still also have that consultation process, and I'm very deliberate about who I take on. Not only am I learning about their goals, but I'm learning about them. They're learning about me. They're learning about the coaching style, because beyond the service, there still has to be that synergy from person to person.
Yeah.
So if there is going to be something that's problematic, we'll find that out pretty quickly.
Pretty quick, yeah.
And even if we have a great consultation, we might not go any further than that. And that's great, because we don't want to judge anybody.
I do feel like, though, I've had, can you think of at least one client? I'm not going to go deep into this, but who appeared on the surface to be one person. And when we first met, I thought this is what it was. And like partway through became a different human being, and then ended up opening a business that resembled exactly what I was doing at the time. And I was like, whoa. And it was one of the only clients I essentially fired. I was like, I'm not working with you anymore. I'm sorry. We're done. Boom. I was very firm. But At first, though, it seemed like puppies and kittens and greatness, but then suddenly there was like a whole shift in personality and human being. And I was like, oh, you're a very different person than you initially presented yourself to be. And I just, it could not continue at a certain point where it was one of those situations where but I found out later, right? Did not find out right out the gate. And it was uncomfortable. And I tried for longer than I probably should have, to be honest. But it's so sometimes they sneak in. You never, the ones that were just, you're like, ooh, whoa, what happened here?
And
I know, and this is all judgments, right? We're making. If we weren't human, we might be able to just sit there and not have these reactions, these biases, and these can be visceral biases, visceral things in us that happen that are in direct conflict with us, and we feel a visceral reaction. But don't forget that there can be small, little, sneaky biases, the little sneaky things that where we may not even realize that subconscious, and so it's that having that beat of self-awareness, like doing that personal inventory and going back and reviewing your sessions, thinking them through and go, oh, wait, did I lead a little there? Did I, what is that? And doing that, I mean, ultimately, I think this is a big part of what this is about. And we can take it outside of politics, religion, and sex and apply it just to everything, to being human, to personal experience, and having our own filters, subjective filter.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
We're at time right now. That's a good closing. Lisa, you got something?
Oh, I was just reminded as you're talking, and it was kind of around this situation that I lightly touched. So I took a course about manipulators because I needed to understand.
That was a manipulator. Mine was a manipulator.
Manipulators, and it was eye-opening. So because of that early training, I mean, there's times that you're going to find out through these kinds of experiences that perhaps more training is going to be beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing about manipulative people, I mean, what's interesting is here's a whole for another time. Do people who lack empathy, right? They exist, but they're still people. Do narcissists deserve coaches? Do narcissists, like, we can talk through this on another level at a different time, but it's one of those subjects where you go, oh, well, they're people too, right?
I'd say yes, absolutely. Doesn't mean it has to be you. It all comes back to the person that can hold that safe space for them. As Kristen just said, yes, just not me.
Just not me, yep.
50,000 credential holders, 70,000 plus life coaches around the world, somebody somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what's funny too, is I think we can, no matter what, even in those situations, that person, that thing, that whatever might sneak in, and we can decide if we'll stay, if we'll go, or what have you. But ultimately, if we're doing that moral checklist, that internal checklist, that bias checklist, we know how to handle these situations as best we do. No, I'm not. Jen.
At first, I thought she meant like narcs, like somebody who's narking on someone.
Officer.
I ain't coaching no narcs. I would never coach a snitch.
Oh gosh.
Wow, that's my final thought for this live.
Final thought? You said?
Yeah, that was my final thought.
That was Anthony's.
We can move on to somebody with a better final thought.
Everybody's got boundaries, triggers, red hot buttons, people that they can coach, people who they can't, whether right now or forever. The presence of a bias or a trigger does not automatically mean the absence of moral character. So doing that inner work is imperative to know who you can and can't coach. And it's better to be honest with your no than disingenuous with your yes. So that is my closing thought.
Hey, say that one more time, Sam. That was good.
I'll try. The presence of a bias or a trigger does not mean the absence of moral character by default. It's all about you doing that inner work to be honest about who you can coach, who you can't coach, because it's better for you to be honest with your no when working with someone than disingenuous with the yes and then do more harm than good in that space.
Yeah. I think that being disingenuous with your yes is creating a dishonest coaching container.
Yeah.
Boom.
Totally.
And that's not what we want, right? So,
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
All right. That should wrap up.
That was
Next week's topic, quickly before we go, is, let me make sure I get it right. Oh, crying wolf. It's an interesting topic. It's controversial coaching. We're gonna be talking about crying wolf and maybe when our clients cry wolf and what that means. So
Wow.
Stay tuned. We've got 3 more weeks of exciting topics coming up, and I'm excited for next week.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at certifiedlifecoachinstitute.com. Until next time, be well.